Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by New Relic. See why thousands of developers worldwide don't deploy without it. Sign up and get a free This Week in Startups t-shirt at newrelic.com/twist. And by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com. And by AWS Activate, the Amazon Web Services startup program. It's easy to start and scale your business with AWS. Visit aws.amazon.com/activate.
Hey everybody, it's This Week in Startups. It's your boy, Jason Calacanis, and I am here with Declan McCullough and Ryan Block, two tremendous journalists, entrepreneurs in their own right. And we're going to talk about all the news that's happening right now. Twitch did not get sold to YouTube, Google. It went to Amazon, Ferguson, Twitter, Uber, just tons and tons of stories. Stick with us. It's going to be an amazing program.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
All right, everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. It's me, Jason Calacanis. You can follow me on the Twitter at Jason. And as you know, traditionally, we've done 2 episodes a week. One is a news roundtable, and then one is an interview with a founder, investor, thinker, etc. Now, we haven't been doing the news roundtable because the first time in 43 years of my incredibly insane life, I took vacations. I went away for 3 weeks this summer.
No, you didn't.
Literally went away for 3
I don't believe it.
Full weeks. Ryan knows because
proof.
I never took any vacation. It was just like, there's no vacation. No, you get a daughter, you take some vacation, you start doing some memories. 2 weeks in Italy, 1 week in Nantucket, a little like Malibu weekend here or there. I really relaxed this summer, but now I'm rip-roaring and ready to go. And Ryan Block's with us. Welcome back to the News Roundtable, Ryan.
Thanks.
Everybody knows Ryan was my partner on Engadget and Weblogs Inc. Me, Ryan, Brian.
Yeah, no, I'm not buying the
Peter.
vacation.
Absolutely.
It's moon landing territory.
Is it a moon landing territory? Yeah, exactly. You'll get there. Well, actually, your last company, Gadget, was bought by AOL. So in a way, you're on vacation working at it.
No comment.
I kid. And of course, founding editor and editor-in-chief of Engadget, yes. And Declan McCullough is with us. Welcome, Declan. And you have recently founded Recent.io, and you were obviously for years covering the most difficult political, technical issues at CNET, but you left out to be a founder now. How's that going?
Well, it's I implemented material design on over the summer, and that took a while. This is Google's new design language for Android, but it's a news recommendation engine. It's better than yours.
Absolutely,
absolutely. It's cleaner. I'm actually not joking. It really is better. I mean, you
haven't seen 3.0 yet.
You're backing the wrong horse in this one, but it's a news recommendation engine.
It's all right. I can invest in yours too.
Zero configuration.
Invest in Circa. I'll just invest in all my competitors.
In accompanying iOS and Android app. I'm in alpha testing now. I'm going to try to do beta testing in the next week, so sign up at recent.io.
There you go, recent.io. The way I look at it is like the news space is like such a big open blue ocean. There's like so much room for everybody to innovate. All right, so listen, you can follow Declan. He's Declan M on the Twitter, and Ryan, of course, part of the First Name Club at Ryan. It has been...
What's up, at Jason?
At Jason, there you go. So it has been a crazy busy week. Let's start. I want to just skip ahead here and talk about Secret. Now, Secret, obviously, is the most polarizing app I think I've ever seen. Well, it's definitely the most polarizing app in the app era, but it might be the most polarizing startup I've ever seen. It is an app where you load it on your phone, it takes your address book, creates a virtual social network, for those people who don't know, creates a social network with your phone book that allows you to then share secrets with that phone book, which of course means you can either confess secrets you'd love for your people in your friendships, to kind of know, or you can slander people. But this has been, like I said, the most polarizing app I've ever seen, because half of my friends wrote blog posts that they absolutely hate it. It's the worst thing ever. It should not be allowed. It's, terrible intent. And then the other half of my friends invested in it. I have never seen something so polarizing. But in the news, a Brazilian judge has told Apple and Google to pull Secret from people's devices, to actually pull it off of their devices and remove it from the App Store.
Which they can do. Well, I don't know about Google, but yeah, Apple can do that.
Apple can remove? Explain
yes,
that. How does that work? They can... go to your phone and take an app off.
Yes. So when they actually first announced the App Store way back in the day, they announced this as a feature of the App Store, which is the first thing they did with the App Store was they wanted to assure people that this is going to be a safe place to download stuff, right? You're not going to be plagued by malware and viruses and all these bad things that people had associated with PCs. And part of that pitch was, hey, you know what? If we ever screw up, if something ever gets through our filter, we can actually take it right off. We can kill that app remotely. And as far as I know, it's only been done like once, maybe twice.
Like malware or something slips through.
Yeah, like something slipped through or was, against policy
and so anyway.
I'm sorry, not Apple policy, but, against some kind of,
some sort of
federal
legal
law.
issue. And they also face fines of thousands of dollars a day. Declan, before we even get into Secret, what do you think about the concept, since you are, very briefed on the issues in terms of freedom and who owns the device, et cetera, from your time at CNET? What do you think of a provider actually coming down onto your device and taking software off of it? Feel weird to you? Feel good to you?
It does feel weird, but I mean, my background is that I grew up with PCs, the Apple II, in the 1980s, and it was your software. You go to a store, you get a copy of Wizardry or Zork or something installed on your computer.
Wizardry, yes,
good stuff. But the point is that it was you didn't. It felt like you owned it. Maybe you didn't. Maybe technically it was licensing, but it was basically it felt like you owned your software, and your computer was certainly not phoning home to the mothership to say maybe I should secretly, without your permission or approval, delete something, and that's what Apple devices do.
Right. So you're against it?
I am against it, but there's an actual.
Ryan, are you against it?
Honestly, I don't have an opinion, or maybe I'm more ambivalent. I mean, I see the issues that you're talking about, but I also see the advantages.
Kind of a soft issue, right? Like, because if it was something that was malicious, you would want them to take it off.
Absolutely. And the fact is, App Store has been around for a number of years now. Apple has clearly not proven itself to be a bad actor of any kind. They've never done this to
except when they took Bitcoin off and wouldn't allow another browser on.
Okay, but that was different. That was not removing apps from people's devices.
Right. That was banning apps,
taking it off the App Store, and then they corrected that.
Okay.
So in the past, if there's been apps that they've decided retroactively, for example, that they don't want in the App Store, they don't, believe in what those apps are doing, they'll take it off the App Store, but they don't remove it from people's devices.
All right, so now let's get the secret.
This is very, very, very rare.
Okay, so let's get the secret. Declan,
and they've been compelled in this case, by the way.
Yeah. So Declan, what do you think about secret in general and a judge ordering it to be removed? Is the judge off his rocker, or is the judge onto something?
I don't really have an opinion. I'm kind of neutral on secret in general. There is Apple does have an API. In other words, Apple devices phone home, and they connect to a URL on iphone-services.apple.com, and they have a blacklisted. It's a JSON file. There's a category called blacklisted apps, and it hasn't been updated. I'm looking at it now since 2011. So this is the unauthorized apps API. So at least it doesn't happen often. But this is going to backfire. It's good. If anything, it's going to push people off of the the Apple App Store, and instead let's have an HTML5 app. Let's have something I can just download and Apple can't control in the same way.
Right. So this happens 3, 4, 5 more times. People might just be like, hey, this is a great excuse to go to an unlocked phone like an Android or to the mobile web. You agree with that, Ryan?
No, not at all. That's ridiculous.
Why is it
going to do that in mass in any numbers? That's crazy.
Oh, come on. Like it's really difficult to install, to download,
really don't care
to
about
connect to a web page. If Jason were investing in Secret 2.0, that would be an HTML5 app. It would be a website.
They can't stop it, is what you're saying,
exactly.
Right? So they're not going to be able to stop it. So it's farcical for a judge to ban the app in a way because it could be a mobile app. But you don't think people would change platforms, is what you're saying, Ryan?
I don't think people are going to change platforms. I don't think people are going to use a kneecapped web version of something if they prefer to use an app version of something. I don't think people are going to switch to Android because they're worried about iPhone maybe potentially.
Oh, I'm not talking about user switching. I'm talking about developer switching.
Yeah,
go to the web page, bookmark the web page, there's your app.
Developers are going to go where they feel like their apps, the things they're building, the products they're building are going to have the greatest chance of success.
Right. They're going to go where the users are and the money is.
Yep. Users and money.
Right. And where
that's Apple.
The bands
and
aren't.
That's Android. That's
not
the
but
web
where the
right
bands
now.
aren't in a way because the Bitcoin people, and listen, Bitcoin's a niche thing, but because because Apple does not want other payment services on their platform, Bitcoin has been relegated to an Android-like or a mobile-like experience.
But that's not true anymore because they backed out on all the Bitcoin stuff, and now it's,
what is Apple's? why do you think Apple does this starting and stopping, where they're like, no, you can't have a browser, and then they are all of a sudden like, yes, you can have Chrome and you can have Dolphin? Is it that they're playing catch up and they're just trying to filibuster, or what?
I think a big part of it for Apple is it's part of their corporate culture to say no before saying yes. And
really?
Yeah.
Explain that for a second.
I mean, I think like any good product company, and they actually produced a marketing video about this specific aspect of their culture, they just want to say no, right? The default answer is no, we don't want to do that. We need proof as some kind of reason why. We need to be convinced why we need to do something. Which you would think, Declan, in a way, is the opposite of what a technology company should do. Isn't the whole approach to technology, hey, just try a bunch of different things? Well, why is Apple so no?
And this is the way. Apple in the 1980s was an open company. In the 1990s, you could buy computers. You have slots. You stick things inside. It's much more expandable. Now they're very much locked down, and Google has been moving towards the more open marketplace, as they probably should.
For ease of use.
I don't understand what you mean by that, though, because if you want to be an Android licensee now, you have to run Google software stack in the way that they tell you.
So they're starting to tighten up.
They're going to recommend, which processors
it's only
and chips
Google,
that you're going to be using.
It's only if you want
any of the
Google
Chrome OS
services.
devices are completely locked down. You can't open them up. You can't modify them. You can't expand them. I mean, everything that Google does in hardware is appliance-like as Apple's hardware.
I develop for both platforms, and I have much more control of my environment as a developer and a user on Android. You are right about Chrome OS, but that's no real different from the iPhone there. But in terms of Android, I can do much more with it. It's much more open than Apple's iOS is.
When we get back from this commercial break, a special sponsor. I love having you guys argue. It's great for radio. Listen, when we get back, I want to talk about Secret being hacked, because it's been hacked, and we all knew it would be. And this is kind of a basic hack. But when we get back, we're going to react to the hack. Okay, listen, New Relic is amazing for application performance. You're going to want to use this, Declan, when you launch your new product in the next week or so.
Tell me more.
So Recent.io is going to need this. It's a very powerful application performance. So what you do is you put it on all your servers, et cetera. We use it here at Inside and at launch. People like Nike, Warby Parker, Airbnb, everybody's using it, Comcast, AT&T. And what it does is it allows you to see on a very granular and detailed level what's going on with your app, whether it's the software or the transport layer or the servers, the memory, whatever it is, what's causing you problems, and how to make your product, your apps, et cetera, just better, faster, more stable. And listen, they're doing their Future Stack 14 conference in San Francisco at Fort Mason. Hey, the same place we're doing. That's the same place we're doing the Launch Festival in March, which is over 90,000 square feet on October 8th and 9th. Future Stack is New Relic's annual technology and user conference. Speakers from Code, GoPro, Adobe, and me, Jason. What? I'm speaking there? I'm moderating a panel. Oh, there you go. On the top disrupting startups. Okay, very good. See, I never will do any panels unless it's for a sponsor or partner. Then I'll obviously break my no panel rule. All right, listen, 25% discount on the conference. Go to futurestack.io, go to futurestack.io, go to futurestack.io, and use the promo code TWiST, TWiST, and I will be there. And hey, why don't you get me like 10 tickets or something, and I'll give them away on my Twitter handle as well. Thanks, New Relic, for sponsoring the show. Everybody go to their Future Stack 2014 conference, October 8th and 9th, futurestack.io, promo code TWiST. All right. So they hacked the anonymous app Secret, and Wired covered it. It was this company called Rhino Security Labs, and I guess they had some sort of hack-a-thon to white hack, I guess, Secret. And they basically very easily figured out how to hack it. Do you guys know the details of this?
Yeah.
So explain to people what happened, Ron.
Basically, they wrote a script. So the way that Secret works, for those not familiar with the security model, is in order to keep secrets anonymous, you have to have, I believe it's like 7 or 8 friends in the system.
7 friends, minimum.
Yeah. And then at that point, it feels like it's reasonable enough to not allow you to be able to easily correlate a secret to an individual. If you have fewer than that, then it won't show it, or it employs some kind of sophisticated techniques to make sure that you're not trying to discover who a secret's attributed to. So they basically wrote a script to mix and match a social graph where it would use a bunch of fake users, and each of those fake users would know the other fake user plus one user, and that would be the one that you kind of feed it. And then from that, you can find out all their secret posts.
Pretty simple. You have 7 dummy accounts.
I mean, I theorized about this like on day 4 or whatever when they came out.
Super easy if you want to find one person's. And then people could do this with something like the Twilio API or whatever. And at some point, their database will get hacked. There's a million ways to hack it. When it does come out, what will the ramification of that be? Declan?
Look, if you want to do it properly, I mean, you need to take some steps to protect your security and privacy, and not just rely on, hey, I've got an app. Type in your darkest secret. Trust us. You have to do something beyond just trust us. Maybe just create an account. Go to a local Starbucks. Use their Wi-Fi. But you have
to put your phone number in order to get the benefit of using your own network. So therefore, you can't really. You could get how would you get into the network?
There was no verification of phone numbers and emails. Is the Rhino Security point? So you could
you could put in my number and then be in my. Wow, that's interesting. So if somebody had my phone number, they could pretend they're me.
But it's an easy fix on a secret
but they can't. They're not pretending they're you because they're not. I mean, all the posts are unattributed, so it doesn't really matter.
So when it does get hacked, because we'll admit it's going to get hacked, you could just say like, listen, somebody else spoofed it and put my number in to join my network. Pretty easy.
Yeah, but again, it's not. I don't remember exactly how the onboarding stuff works. I'll take your word for that. I mean, they do some stuff on the back end where they disassociate a post. They use like a one-time token in the database from the poster to the actual post. So if that database did get hacked, then I think it would be a little bit more challenging to actually trace that all the way back.
You could unlink the post.
And you can unlink
unlink the post.
I mean, look, the bottom line is, if this is something that you don't want to ever be exposed, you shouldn't be putting it on the internet anywhere ever.
Right. The
period. There's no further discussion to be had. I mean, that's just it.
That is the truth, isn't it, Declan? Like, there is really no way to be anonymous on the internet. It is a false sense of security people have, even using a VPN or even using whatever. I mean, you're going to get caught pretty much. It's hard to be anonymous unless you're on somebody else's Wi-Fi.
It's incredibly difficult. Even with even with someone else's Wi-Fi, you're still going to have browser fingerprinting them. Your browser's going to leak all sorts of information about you, screen size, what exact version it's running, and even that can be used to narrow down the universe of who's using it. So it becomes very, very difficult. You almost want to have a burner computer that you use just once or twice.
Very interesting. So speaking of burner computers and speaking of security, Mozilla, which seems to be losing its relevance in a certain way, which is sad in a way. But the Mozilla Foundation, which of course makes Firefox, the browser that we all used to use before Chrome got faster, I guess decided they want to be in the operating system business and made a mobile operating system. Now they're launching their first smartphone in India for $35 or something to that, or $33 US. It's a quarter of the size of Google's Android One. And so tell us about this phone, Ryan, and the impact it might have.
Well,
and the operating system.
Yeah, I mean, Firefox OS has been kind of out there. I think they were hoping to find some partners to launch it for a while now. I can't remember exactly when it was announced. I think 2 years ago, something like that. I mean, I have a hard time finding these kinds of devices particularly interesting. I mean, I have an intellectual curiosity about what they are, but I mean, this is basically the Chrome OS of phones, right? So everything is going to be done in the browser. This has not been proven to be a usage model that I think people really care a whole lot about. That said, a cheap phone is better than no phone, but it's not like this is the only $35, pseudo smartphone out there. I mean, there are extremely low cost.
What's the name of the Chinese company with the X? Is that
Xiaomi?
Xiaomi is how you pronounce it? Xiaomi?
Yeah.
Xiaomi. Xiaomi.
So Xiaomi is like kind of, you can think of them as low to mid-range, right? They're trying to capture the runoff of the iPhone and the Samsung markets in developing countries, but they're still a little bit higher. They're not the $35 phone people, right?
The so they're $35 not like broken,
phone
worst possible experience.
That's right.
They're like, if I'm in India or if I'm in China, if I'm in Vietnam, whatever, and I can't afford the Samsung S4 or the iPhone 5 because those things still go for $500 over there, right?
Yeah, more.
Sometimes. $700. because what would that be in terms of a person's salary? I mean, they might be making $100 a month or
Absolutely.
something. So they can't possibly spend that, but they will spend $100 on one.
Right. So Xiaomi is that's where they're seeing a lot of their growth, but they're, like many companies, in a race to the bottom in terms of the mobile market. So the Firefox OS, I mean, I think it's a noble experiment. I think they're way too late. I don't think that they have a product that people are going to really care about. Their best possible case scenario is that they start to get some adoption in some developing nations. But I mean, I just really don't see how there's anything else other than a distraction for them. I mean, they're having a hard enough time in their core product.
They can't get the browser to work, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know. So people still really like it.
But it's going to be harder and harder with being up against Google. And they really feel, and this is like, I think, a sort of great segue, Declan. Google made the Mozilla Foundation along with Ted Leonsis, who took Netscape, open sourced it, created the foundation with, I guess, Mitch Kapoor or somebody. I think it was Mitch Kapoor who actually asked him to do it. But anyway, they made that open source. And then Google gave them the search revenue, and they started making $25-50 million a year, something incredible like that, maybe even $100 million. They hired hundreds of engineers to keep building it. And then Google decided, this is what I heard from an insider, Google lied to them year after year about hiring a browser team, but the Mozilla Foundation people kept hearing that the recruiters were trying to hire people, not their people, but hiring people who they were also trying to hire, right? So they were smart enough not to hire directly from the foundation, but they double-crossed them by basically building that stealth Google Chrome team for 5 years or something, and then launched a competitive product, even though they had sort of enabled the whole thing. So what do you think happens to the Mozilla Foundation? Is it going to go away?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if double cross is would be the way to put it. I mean, maybe companies just don't announce their plans to potential quasi competitors.
Well,
there's
the only reason I say double cross, because if you ask somebody, "Are you doing this?" and they lie and they're your partner,
or we've announced no plans.
But I mean, like you know how it goes with products. Some products don't ship, right?
That's
like
true.
you might be baking in the lab and they might decide not to ship it.
But this is also what Eric Schmidt did to Steve Jobs with Android, right? Remember he told him, "Well, that was again, we're not going to do a phone."
Apple did to Motorola versus Intel on chips. I mean, that thing baking for 15 years. But
all right, so whatever.
Okay, look, I'm going to put on my hat as a sometime app developer here and say that when I was starting to work on Recent.io, I looked into doing it in HTML5. This is the Facebook approach initially, and I thought this is great, but I could even run on Blackberries or something. Who the hell knows what? And it was just too slow. This is even on relatively high-end devices, it was just too slow. And so on a $33 phone, it's better than nothing, as Ryan said, but I don't get excited about this as a developer, and you probably want some developers working on this stuff at some point.
Well, granted, the people who are going to be building for this are not going to be your market anyway, right? These are going to be people who are working towards I mean, so I look at the China market, and I look at Alibaba and Alipay, and these are things that could have only happened there. They could never have come out of a U.S. market or a European market.
All right, Amazon bought Twitch. Wow, for $970 million in cash. What is that about? In a way, it's kind of weird. They decided they were going to buy something that YouTube desperately wanted, right? Why?
Well, couldn't make it happen.
Why couldn't they make it happen? What do you think happened here, and why are they buying it?
Prime Video.
Prime Video, explain.
Well, they clearly want to be in the living room. They clearly want to be delivering your video.
Yep.
Right? They clearly want to be a provider of content. They want to compete with Netflix. They want to compete, I guess, to a certain extent with YouTube. I don't know, but this price seems, for them, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
For Amazon.
For Amazon. It makes sense for a YouTube, right? They can do something with a
Immediately.
Twitch. Immediately. And longer term, right? They have a platform that they can guarantee sustained growth.
Yeah.
Amazon does not have that. They can't guarantee growth the same way. Mm-hmm. They can't guarantee the ad revenue the same way. There isn't really that kind of same appeal. There isn't that crossover appeal, right? Like YouTube, Twitch, I mean, that's a partnership. Makes sense. Two great tastes that taste great together.
Right. Video game content has always been big on YouTube, and live streaming video game content seems great.
And I would file this under hearsay, but I've heard that a lot of gamers are already moving away from Twitch anyway.
Wow. Yeah. And so what do you think, Declan? Have you been following this? Or any opinion?
The Forbes had an article out this morning saying that it was that Google backed off because of antitrust concerns and only antitrust concerns. So, I mean, and they couldn't agree on a breakup fee. In other words, if Google were to buy them for maybe even more money, then
right.
And then the DOJ or FTC objected, what would the breakup fee be?
Right. And they probably said $1 billion. The breakup fee is what you bought.
Right. But from Google's perspective, that wouldn't make sense. You're not going to waste $1 billion on and get zero in result.
Yeah.
So this is. Let me just make a political point. This is an example of the U.S. government, D.C., not really treating Silicon Valley companies the way they should be treated. I mean, I don't think that there's an incredibly high barrier to entry. If I want to do some video streaming startup, I just with a few $100,000, I could do a pretty good job, maybe even with a few tens of thousands of dollars. So, but DC said no.
Interesting. Or DC potentially could have said no.
They're going to be having discussions if it's this far along. They're going to be talking to the FTC and say, "What do you think?"
Yeah, and Google has so much market share in search, and now so much market share in video consumption. And so much market share in advertising.
It depends on how you define the market. Hello, video consumption. There are these things called cable television and broadcast TV networks.
Of course.
It's all in your market definition.
It is, but if you look at what happened in search, the market definition, quickly became reality of 90% in most markets, right? So I think people just look at Google and just think these people execute so well that it's a foregone conclusion that they will corner the market.
Well, there are other ways to find things other than just going to a search engine. You might be going to Amazon.com for product search and so on.
True.
But this is Google does not want to fight with the U.S. government. They're busy enough with Europe.
I have inside information.
Spill. It's only us.
Here's the thing. When I wrote all my stuff about YouTube, hey, listen, I'm done. This is just ridiculous. The split's crazy. You can't make any money here. And they really don't treat the bigger partners well. Every single person in the world contacted me about this. And a lot of people who contacted me were like, I think, Yahoo's going to do something. I think, this person's going to do something. And then there were, this person is doing something and here is what they're doing. And I got a lot of people who said Yahoo is contacting people about deals and Amazon is contacting people about deals. And then all I got out of Facebook was not that Facebook was contacting people about deals. Facebook was trying to meet with news providers about video, and they were trying to meet with celebrities. So they were going down to Hollywood to meet with Ellen and all these other celebrities to try to get them to use Facebook. What is happening here is Amazon is going to launch a full-blown YouTube competitor. I think you're absolutely dead on, Ryan. And this is just a way to start with 20, 30 million uniques that are kids. And then all Amazon has to do right now is go to iJustine or whoever and say, hey, we'll give you a $10 CPM, put your stuff here, promote it on Amazon Prime, promote it on Twitch, et cetera. And now you got something. You could actually start to, and they've already built an ad network. All right, listen, when we get back, let's do the launch of the week, and let's talk about a bunch of Uber stories in the news. So thanks to my good friend, Scott Walker from the Walker Corporate Law Group. He's a great, great guy who I've known for many years. He sponsored the show for many years. I forward a lot of startups to him, and he runs a boutique law firm that specializes in the representation of entrepreneurs and startups. And they encourage fixed fees. Yes, that's right. They believe that billable hours reward inefficiency. Declan, you're probably going through this right now. When you get that legal bill, huh? And you're like gulp while you open the PDF,
exactly,
and then the PDF. Right. Well, you had this at Gadget. Oh, yeah. Holy Jesus, sweet Jesus, what's going to happen next? Well, not with Scott Walker. Scott Walker takes care of his entrepreneurs, gives them fixed fees. No surprises when you get that bill. Mergers and acquisitions, licensing agreements, terms of service, privacy policies, yada yada yada. And he's helped a lot of entrepreneurs from the Launch Festival and the Launch Hackathon work out their IP issues, work out their formation issues, work out their angel rounds, all that great stuff. Scott at WalkerCorporateLaw.com. Scott at WalkerCorporateLaw.com. And his number 415-979-9998. 979-9998. Scott is a great guy. Go ahead and thank him for sponsoring independent media like This Week in Startups at Scott Ed Walker. Scott Ed Walker on Twitter. Thanks again, Scott. You are a true supporter of entrepreneurs and the show. We really appreciate it. All right, listen, Uber's in the news. Full disclosure, I'm an angel investor. High five. Boop. And so I am absolutely not unbiased in this, but let's start with what just came out while we were starting the show, which is The Verge did a story. Explain what the story is, Ryan.
Basically, inside documents from what they call Operation Slog, which is a recruiting effort, and explains in painstaking detail the specific methods their street team / marketing / recruiting people take to convert Lyft drivers over to Uber drivers. Nothing in there about ride canceling, which is good. I think that's where everyone kind of draws the line. Because you're endangering people.
If there was people doing ride canceling, I don't think anybody at Uber would support that, and I wouldn't support it as an investor in Uber. But just so also people know, I have no inside information on the company at all, and I specifically don't ask for it because as a journalist, sort of when I do the show, I don't want to have any inside information. But now let's talk about the one of the aggressive recruiting of drivers. Is that cool in your mind or not? I have my own thoughts on it. I'll share them in a minute, but I want to hear yours and Declan's. And where would you draw the line?
Honestly, I need more time to chew on it.
Yeah. Well, explain what they do. Or what the claim is.
They've been hiring street teams, very specifically selected individuals. They're supplying them with burner phones, temporary credit cards. They're instructed to create an account, jump into a Lyft, go just far enough to ask them a bunch of targeted questions, see if they can convert them over. If they convert, great, they get a bounty. If they don't, they put them into a database and say, hey, we already tried this person. Don't try this person again. Otherwise, we're going to tip them off. So there's very aggressive, maybe bordering on sleazy, totally understandable. Yeah. And, they're not losing money by, taking these rides.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll let you go, Declan, because obviously I'm super biased on all this. Go ahead, Declan. What do you think?
I don't have enough information, honestly.
None of us
do. The article just came out a few minutes ago. It's long. It has a lot of embedded documents. But if they're not doing anything that's illegal, and I don't think they're doing anything that's immoral based on the headline. I mean, this is hardball competition, but so far nothing I've read crosses the line.
Yeah. So looking at this, I don't speak for the company. If any journalists are going to go say Uber investor Jason Calacanis said this, because I'm just reading the version.
Hang on, I got my blog post ready here. So just go ahead. I'm ready to fill in the quote.
Comment on everything. Listen, very simply, anybody should be able to offer any other freelancer a job, and anybody should be able to offer an affiliate fee for that person to switch teams. There's nothing stopping Lyft from going into Uber cars and telling them Lyft is a better service and you should join it for these reasons. Let the best product win. And if people want to aggressively poach people, well, that's what Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, everybody does all day long. Where it becomes problematic is when you make an agreement to not. Right? And that's why Google and Apple got in trouble, because Steve Jobs, may he rest in peace, who's a genius and contributed a lot to society. But this is one area where he did something that I think was incredibly loathsome, which is he said, I can make unlimited money, but the developers who work for me, we're going to agree not to get into bidding wars over them and poach from each other. This is the opposite. The drivers get to go for the best deal. And you know what? The drivers, in a lot of cases, are not one crowd sharing app drivers. They're in multiple things, right? Aren't there many?
I don't know.
Many Uber and Lyft drivers I know have both apps, and they get to choose which network they want to be part of. So, while it may be aggressive, and I think Uber's an aggressive company, clearly they've been successful because of it. I don't see anything here that's wrong. At least
it drives up demand for drivers, and more drivers enter. I mean, this is not a zero-sum game. This is a dynamic marketplace. If it becomes successful, then the prices for drivers go up. What's wrong with that?
And the other aspect here is normally when you're recruiting, right, you're going to use tools to identify people quickly and not waste a whole lot of time by having to have a street team. It's not like you get recruiters who come door to door knocking on offices. Hey, anyone here looking for a new gig?
Right.
Not that would even be possible. So, I mean, if you're an Uber driver, you're not really putting that on your LinkedIn. So this is really one of the only ways that you can actually get access to that pool of candidates.
Here's something. I think building off what you're saying, if I was somebody who was part of the street team and I was recruiting a driver, if I requested a ride to then pay for the ride and give that driver money, but then also pitch them on switching teams, if I saw that I had already pitched them, I would cancel. So maybe that's where this cancellation claim is coming.
I don't
Right?
think so,
Like if
because
you
the
saw my
number
picture-
the number of cancellations was way higher than I think the number of people who were doing this. Lyft was claiming something like over 5,000 cancellations per month. This is a street team of like 8 people.
Well, if you had 8 people, yeah, but this might be only one street team, and who knows? They could be making who knows if Lyft is telling the truth? But if you had 8 people trying 20 times a day, it could add up quickly to a couple of hundred people canceling rides. So, but I don't think they ever would. I don't believe the canceling ride claim. But anyway, they're also launching a couple of tests. They released the API, which I think people saw, and actually Travis talked about on the show, with partners like OpenTable, TripAdvisor, United Airlines, and then they just launched today Uber Fresh in Santa Monica, which is a 2-week test to see if people want to buy $12 lunches, I guess similar to Sprig or whatever. What do you think?
Has there ever been a more high-profile launch of an API than Uber launching their API? I mean, like...
Definitely not.
I've never heard of an API being, like, rumored about for months in advance. And
how about years in advance? He talked about it on the program. I don't know why people think it's like some huge secret. He talked about wanting to do Uber everything 3 years ago on the program. People don't listen to him. But it was a big deal, right?
It's a pretty big deal. I think so.
Why do you think the API is a big deal? Like, because, I mean, just simply linking from Google Maps to Uber is, like, nice. But what do you think the true potential of the API is when we see it 5 years from now?
It's bridging the virtual and the real world, right? It's a way for you to, physically relocate yourself through whatever, other piece of technology you're using. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. What do you think we'll see in a couple of years made with the Uber API? Does anybody have any ideas of like what?
I mean, I'm actually working on an app right now that is, we'll use it.
You're kidding?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a huge thing. It's just it's a little project we're working on. I have no idea if it'll ever see the light of day.
At AOL in the labs.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So AOL is on the Uber API already.
I mean, I wouldn't say AOL is like, it's not like a large corporate initiative, but yeah, it's like a little,
Yeah, Skunkworks or whatever. Your job is to make little experiments and see if they become big things. And so that's on AOL's radar, and you're an AOL executive.
So that API does something really interesting, right? It allows us to go beyond intent and actually execute the physical relocation of a person. That we talk about like secret, right, and like all these things that happen in this this headspace of the internet. This is real space,
right? So you book a reservation with OpenTable for right now, and it fires off the Uber driver to pick you up as part of the expense for that, right? Like that's where I think it gets super interesting to me is imagine a hotel said, when you book a room with our hotel, we just automatically, if you do hotel tonight, it automatically comes with a $15 Uber credit. We just include it in the price. So you're going to just move. Or you order something on Amazon, maybe they wouldn't do it, but Best Buy or somebody else, and they just say like, up to $7 in Uber X delivery included. The driver, do you want the driver to drop this off? Boom, you click it and it's on the way. Like you don't have to do anything else. What do you think, Declan?
The nice thing about APIs, or really the wonderful thing, is that we can't predict what's going to happen. I mean, you're opening up, as opposed to just a team of folks working in a lab, or even a team of folks working at a large company like Google. There's a big difference between that and the entire world. There's the recent.io app I'm working on does local news. So it would be pretty easy to say there's local news about a restaurant. Click here, integrate the API, dedicate a little bit of screen real estate for a button, just make it work. It wouldn't be that difficult. I'm excited.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Okay, let's get into the launch of the week.
Hey, look, you got the right. You got the right city. You got the right city.
I got the right city there, huh? I got a Golden Gate Bridge or something going on. Welcome. Yes, I'm living in San Francisco for 2 or 3 weeks, and I might actually have a place to live. Temporary housing. All right. Thanks for our friends at Bing, 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 Bing for sponsoring the launch of the week. All right. Let's see. The first one is Edyn, the Connected Garden. Let's play that video.
And this is our first product, the Edyn Garden Sensor. Edyn assesses soil nutrition in your garden. Tracks how humid or dry it may be, the temperature, the kind of sunlight you're getting throughout the day. Then Edyn takes all that information about your garden and cross-references it with meteorological data from the area you live in. Edyn can tell you what type of fertilizer is best for your soil and what vegetables will thrive in it, when to plant them, and
all right, very good. That's Edyn. Thank you, Edyn. And then next up is LocalLift, a Kickstarter for local businesses. Let's take a look at that. I believe that's a Y Combinator company.
Of unused space next to the shop. And
Let's play that video. By the way, we're getting a little feedback of myself on the audio. All right, very good. That's Edyn. Thank you, Edyn. And then next up, local
outdoor seating area with additional chairs and tables.
I believe that's
Tom went to a local bank for a loan, but had no luck. So he went to a few more banks, but received the same answer. Tom was frustrated. How could he fund this expansion if the banks were turning him away? Introducing LocalLift, a crowdfunding platform that can help Tom raise the funds he needs by tapping into his networks, customers, and local community. So how does it work? Tom receives contributions from crowdfunders in exchange for cool rewards and perks.
All right, there you have it, folks. If you have a local business and you can't afford to put a deck outside or whatever, you basically can sell meals in advance or special experiences. And then finally, I believe this is another Y Combinator one, Gingko Bioworks, manipulating biology, making biology easier to engineer. Go ahead. We have a clip for that?
So, this comes from the dawn of civilization. This comes from the dawn of agriculture.
Our crowdfunding platform is localized and created.
For example, a lot of customers are interested in producing new fragrances that they didn't have access to previously. They have to go find a new variety of rose and it has a different smell. And depending on where you source rose from, it can have a very different aroma. Roses from Bulgaria smell differently from roses from Turkey. And so what we're interested in doing now at Ginkgo is saying, well, can we expand the variety of rose scents, of rose oils, even further? Instead of just limiting ourselves to what naturally occurring roses provide, say exactly how much of all the different ingredients in there to make an exotic new blend of rose.
It's always been obvious that if you can get better at manipulating and making biology do the things that humans want it to do, it's going to make life better for people. At Ginkgo, what we're doing is expanding those tools, and then we're putting them in the hands of some of the most creative folks in the world, organism engineers at Ginkgo, to really deliver new products for people and to find new ways to use biology to make the world better.
So that's like some Blade Runner level stuff, making new derivatives of plants. And were all three of these, correct me if I'm wrong, were these all three at Y Combinator? Okay, so all three of these were at Y Combinator. I was at Demo Day. Actually, it was the first time I went to Demo Day ever, and it was quite nice to go there. So let's go through them. Declan, what did you think of Edyn, the connected garden?
I liked it. I have a wired home. I did it myself. It has sensors. It can do things like measure temperature and whether there's rainfall. But it doesn't take the next step, which is to do things like check out the nutrient level of soil. And that's what makes this kind of fun. I like it.
Yeah, it looks like pretty interesting. What did you think, Ryan, of Edyn?
I'm trying to remember if these guys originally launched at Disrupt last year.
Yeah, they might
or
have
earlier this year.
Yeah, and I think they were on Kickstarter, so I think this is kind of interesting. They were a Disrupt company last year, and then they did Kickstarter, and then they went into Y Combinator. So there's this really interesting thing going on in startups now, where I have people applying to the launch festival, then going into Y Combinator, then going to Disrupt, then going to Kickstarter.
This is like kids going to college and then just staying in college for 10 years.
It's exactly what it's like. Yeah. There's a whole thing where angel companies will go to multiple accelerators, and I'm like, didn't you graduate from Techstars and now you're going to Highway 6? Yeah, well, we think we can learn more over there. And I'm like, well, it kind of sort of signals you're kind of weak if you can, but I'm not saying that's the case here. But Kickstarter to Y Combinator seems like a pretty interesting combo. So what do you think of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, being that I saw them at Disrupt before, I would like to see the product out.
It's taking a little bit of time now,
yeah,
right?
it's taking a little while.
I mean, this is a couple-year thing, right? Yeah, hardware is hard.
Hardware is very hard. Definitely like the idea. I hope they're successful.
Looks like they did 340. You can pull up my screen here if you want. 384,000 for Edyn. Lots of backers and gorgeous looking product. Was that done by Yves Behar? I think. Somebody check that because I thought Yves Behar might have done the design of it. But beautiful looking.
Yeah, it's Yves Behar.
Yeah, there it is, Yves Behar. Yeah. So really beautiful. And then the interesting thing was they said they were going to go into. When I saw this at Y Combinator, I was like, you know what? It's super cute. I think there's people who will buy it. But I was like, you know what? I don't know that. This is a really super huge market, like people at home with their gardens. But I do think commercial is. And then they were talking and they referenced commercial. But I played poker with a guy who was a former Google guy who has a company that he just sold to another big company. Anyway, they do like the serious predictive models of weather based on sensors and tell you exactly when to grow crops, what crops to grow, when, water and everything. So now farming is becoming a science. So for this little dinky company, and I never dismiss anybody or discount anybody, to catch up to that one is going to be hard. And so when I looked at it like investment-wise, I'm thinking, my God, if there's so many huge incumbents who really care deeply about farming and the detail level has already been done, how do you ever catch up to that? And then how big is the small garden space?
I mean, the sensor array, though, that's still, I think, a battle yet to be fought. And
what do you mean by that? The sensor is a battle to be fought. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think if you were to go to most large agro operations, you would not find a bunch of sensors, connected sensors. So, this is something I think that there's still an opportunity there. I think it's still early.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to combine these kinds of sensors with those predictive weather modeling, or maybe they get acquired and they get picked up.
No, this company that I met with, they were actually putting sensors in. Like that was their latest thing. So they're not that far behind. Okay, let's talk about LocalLift. What did you think of this one, Declan? Kickstarter for local businesses. And I'm pulling it up on my screen. You can see a little bit.
It has the market is tremendous. There are a lot of local businesses that will benefit from it. Whether it's going to be the one that succeeds or whether Kickstarter, other Kickstarter-esque startups go into the space, I don't know. And I don't know enough about the space. It seems like it's relatively easy to enter.
Agreed. Very easy to enter. But looking at this, like here's a very successful one for a boxing gym in Dogpatch here in San Francisco. They raised 25 of 15,000 they needed, 49 supporters. What do you think?
I mean, the funny thing about this is this is what Kickstarter was for, right? I mean, like Kickstarter used to be the place where you would go fund a new restaurant, fund local businesses. It wasn't just the place to go to build hardware that may or may not ever ship. So it's kind of funny to see Kickstarter become unbundled from itself, right, and become these niche funding platforms. I mean, there's nothing not to like about it. I think it's worthy. I'm feeling a little bit over crowdfunded right now. Yeah.
Why?
I mean, how many there are so many crowdfunding platforms for so many different things, and that's fine. It's not like that I'm saying that there shouldn't be. I'm just feeling like at a certain level, how many different businesses and products am I going to pre-fund?
I agree with you 100%, and I'll tell you why. Everything I've ordered off of Kickstarter, and I don't mean this to dig to Kickstarter. I love Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Has not been great, and I understand it's not supposed to be great. Like it's supposed to be the prototype.
It's V1. V0.1.
The difference between what they sold me on and the actual result is really great. So what I wish is that the Kickstarter platforms and the Indiegogo platforms demanded as much diligence and execution on the product as they do on the marketing video. Like everybody can make a perfect Apple-like commercial now that makes you feel like, my God, if this product exists, everything in the world's going to be okay again with that uplifting music.
Did you see the hover bike this week?
Of course. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh God, I would totally want that, man. I'll pay anything. That's never going to.
But I tell you the one that was the most frustrating for me. There was a USB cable and it had an LED light at the end. And when you touch the end, it lit up. And I was like, that's my problem in life. I can never find my cable on my phone at night. I have to turn the light on. My wife wakes up this will solve everything. I'll be able to plug my phone in and see the thing at the bottom. I get 2 of them. 3 years later or something, they break in the first week. Both of them completely fall apart, broken. And then I'm like, do I have the time to follow up? What do you think of this, Declan? LocalLift.
Well, I mean, there probably is.
Kickstarters in general.
There's probably a glut, and the way there's a glut is when NPR finally realizes there's a glut. On the way, I live on the San Francisco Peninsula, so I was driving in listening to NPR, and they were interviewing college students. I may be mangling some of the details, who were deciding whether or not they should do crowdfunding for their education, and whether or not this violates social norms. And the students were saying, actually, no, it doesn't. We were telling our parents this is perfectly fine. I'm with you. There's a little too much of this,
and this has been done already. There was a local business one. I can't remember the name of it, but God, I mean, I remember covering this on the show a long time ago. There was one who did just this. Okay, now finally, Gingko Bioworks. What did you think of that? Manipulating biology, Ryan? Trying to make.
I don't even know where to start. I mean, it's. I feel like that's a ridiculously complicated topic, and we just got like the top 0.02% of it. So I literally I don't have an opinion of it right now.
Tell me the upside. Tell me the downside. How about that? Like when your mind wanders, because we've all we're all just sort of getting our heads around this concept of like, oh, you're going to make new roses with new smells. Okay, that sounds fine. Just like I'm going to have an alligator as a pet seems fine, or I'm going to have an anaconda or a boa constrictor as a pet seems fine until it grows up. And then now the Everglades, they're trying to figure out how to get all the anacondas and boa constrictors out.
Yeah. So pros, new flavors, new plants, new experiences. Cons, rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay, there you have it, folks. They try to make new smelling roses, but it's all going to be... They did it. My God, they finally did it. What do you think, Declan? Is it that bad? Is life that bad?
Of the three companies you mentioned, I mean, this is the most interesting and long-term and probably the furthest off from having a shipping product. But it's a real company. They have an 11,000 square foot facility in Boston, they say. They've staffed up. The markets they list include cultured ingredients. That would be the perfume. Carbon mitigation, probiotics, natural product discovery. It's the most interesting. The
carbon mitigation. Wow.
And I don't know enough about it to express an informed opinion.
Right. This is so new. But when you think about carbon mitigation, like this is where things could go horribly wrong or horribly right.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like we're going to let some algae go in this lake, and it is going to suck more carbon out of the air than it, and it's all going to be okay.
Any pool of plants. Yeah. So I mean, we've been talking about that for many years where, okay, we're going to take like half of this, a state half of the size of Utah, we're going to make that a giant algae pool, and that's going to eat all of the carbon that the world produces.
No problem.
Yeah.
Until, as you saw in Prometheus, somebody gets their like mask, like some snake comes out of the algae and decides it wants to live and grow, and life wants to. I mean, what did they say in Jurassic Park? Like
life will find a way. Yeah.
Life will find a way, right? Oh, and, hey, and Richard Attenborough, right? He died.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Pal. What a great character, huh? And then what's his name?
Robin Williams.
No, yeah, Robin Williams is terrible as well. But The Fly. Who's the guy who was in? Who is the guy who played the scientist, the chaos scientist, the chaos theory scientist in Jurassic Park?
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. What a great.
What do you mean? What something
role
happened
for
to Jeff Goldblum?
You're joking, right?
No, seriously. I missed this.
He killed himself like just 10 minutes ago.
Seriously?
No. That's how you spread rumors on the internet.
Thanks, Jason.
Just fucking. It was pretty.
I give up.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was an inappropriate joke, but this does happen like every couple of days. Some celebrity, people say they die on the internet, and it spreads like that. But what a great role. Okay, so which one do you pick? Declan, which one is your launch of the week and why? Ryan, take me through your thought process and why.
Well, Edyn for me, because I feel I understand it, unlike Gingko Bioworks, and it's something that I want to use for my house. I don't know enough about plants. I'd like to have my garden looking a little better.
All right, Ryan, take me through your thoughts.
I'm going to go to option D, and that's Hyperlapse.
Okay, what is that? Tell us about Hyperlapse.
It's Instagram's new. The term Hyperlapse is what it is. It's a new technology. Basically, it does.
I just love the fact that you're just like, yeah, no, that's all very interesting. I'm going to come up with my own shit.
Yeah, well, that's how it goes.
Here we go.
That's the world I live in, brother.
Exactly.
I mean, look, those are all very interesting companies.
Right, I'm pulling up Hyperlapse.
I think Hyperlapse is absolutely fascinating. So it's a special form of image stabilization and long form like time-lapse video stitching, and it allows you to take incredibly smooth, extremely professionally looking produced video, time-lapse video.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, like,
look at this.
I actually did one driving over here in a very, very bumpy cab. It looks just like that. It's ridiculously smooth. Microsoft showed a proof of concept of this like 2 weeks ago, and it got a lot of people really, really fascinated by what could happen if this got productized. And all of a sudden, Instagram's like, nope, we did it. It's already done. Here it is. Use it.
So this is basically taking a bunch of small shots and then stitching them together and stabilizing them in some way.
And stabilizing them, right. So it finds
genius.
the bumps in the video,
Yes.
and it skips the bumps, right?
So
because you've got enough frames being recorded that it skips around the bumps, and because the time lapse is so fluid, you don't really notice those skips around the bumps.
Oh my God, this is so...
And the key is, instead of spending weeks processing this, instead it can cheat by using data from the phone's accelerometer. And that's why it's iOS only until Android exposes the right APIs.
Oh my goodness. So wait a second. It's not doing it based on looking at visual imaging. It's saying the accelerometer moved at that microsecond. Those frames are no good?
Well, I think it's all of these things. It is
that is
highly
so
algorithmic as well. Because
mind-blowing.
The Microsoft stuff was done solely algorithmically. So we know that this can be processed purely in software.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, Instagram has some really interesting stuff that they're doing with, like actually really getting underneath the OS and into the hardware.
It's pretty fascinating. And when you think about it, like, how stupid is Apple for letting Facebook buy Instagram? Isn't that unbelievable? Like, Instagram should have been part of that. Would have been their perfect purchase. And what did they sell Instagram for? $1 billion?
Yeah.
And then WhatsApp got...
Apple has never really understood social, though. I mean, it still eludes them.
But they're starting to... They're starting to buy stuff now. They bought Swell, which I was an investor in, for 5 months. It's like super... That's like when you're an angel investor and a company gets bought 5 months after by Apple, everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's the greatest thing ever." I'm like, no, it's not. It's like taking down the blinds in poker. Like you have pocket aces and then everybody folds, and you're like win very little, but you win. So does that?
We feel for
your poker. Yeah, your poker metaphors are
makes no sense. Anyway, it's like winning a de minimis amount, and it's still winning, but it kind of sucks. Anyway,
I'm really sorry for you, Jason.
I know. I have nowhere to park my Tesla and get charged.
Can we go over them?
All right, first world problems, hashtag. But why didn't, but Apple did buy Beats. Apple did buy...
Beats, not social.
Not social, but they bought Swell. So are they getting more acquisitive?
I mean, who knows what they're going to do as well? How much of that social DNA are they really going to keep?
Who knows?
Social. Swell is fantastic design.
Yeah,
well, that's what they privilege.
If you didn't have Hyperlapse, what would you been your pick out of those three? I think
probably Edyn.
Probably Edyn.
Yeah, still
interesting. Well, Hyperlapse is certainly the most well executed of the four. Now that we've expanded it, but I will say that. Although I think Edyn looks really tight right now and looks like it's going to be a product that actually delivers, so congratulations to the Edyn team. And although LocalLift I think is going to do a lot of good, I think both of those are hard to get behind when somebody says they're going to work on gut bacteria and smelling roses and stuff like that. So for me as an angel investor, like if I had to take a meeting with only one, I would go with Gingko Bioworks. But also, as Declan correctly pointed out, who knows when that's going to actually hit. But yeah. All right. And we mentioned Ferguson before. Declan, did you bring that up as a topic? What did you think of that? Did you bring up Ferguson?
I didn't.
What do you think of all the...
We could spend hours talking about that one.
Yeah, let's talk about Ferguson and Twitter. I mean, this was perhaps the first major event where people on... I guess with the Boston bombing, but it almost feels like the journalists in the Boston bombing and some of these other things, they kind of got their warm-up, and then people were ready at Ferguson to do real, actual Twitter journalism. Is that your take on it? What do you think?
I'm trying to remember who it was that said this, but it was it Anthony DeRosa? I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry.
Circus editor-in-chief. Yeah.
It was the quote was Twitter is for Ferguson, Facebook is for Ice Bucket Challenge.
I think that was Anthony, and that was a great quote. I thought that was super.
And it really, I think it crystallized the potential impact that certain forms of social media can have. And yes, you can do all these things on Facebook. You can run a Ferguson public group or something like that for posting on Facebook. But the broadcast and subscriber model of Twitter, the simplicity, the speed, these are all things that just make it it really taps into the veins of things that are happening. And we've seen Twitter become part of the fabric of social movements overseas, but we haven't really seen that kind of unrest here in America, let alone in the hometown of Twitter's founder Jack.
Yeah.
So
and Jack went, which is
he went, and
Jack,
he was posting
and that was
some
very
of the
powerful.
best content out there. Yeah, it was
very powerful to see Jack, and we got to get him on the program. I mean, I think that was very I was very touched to see him actually the guy's obviously very busy running one company, and he just was I have to go. I mean, he just felt compelled to go to his hometown, and just. I also think it's kind of interesting when you think about the technology space, because there's been a big discussion about race and technology, which is something that people don't really want to talk to. And for whatever reason, I always feel like I've got to insert myself into these conversations and talk about it, and it gets me in trouble. But I will say it is amazing how Instagram and Twitter have been driven, and Android, many of these platforms have been driven to scale, not by white people, but by the urban market or by markets outside the United States. So people want to say oh my God, the technology industry is so white or, whatever, affluent. It's I don't think so. I think if you look at Android phones and Instagram, I was just talking to somebody who manages Nicki Minaj, and I was do you realize how popular she is on Instagram? She has defined that medium. She is outrageously popular. Those are the people who built a lot of these companies.
Yeah, so one of the things that was really interesting about Twitter is a lot of people discovering for the first time what is referred to as Black Twitter, right? And that's this, alternate Twitter that is, very, very deeply Black.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And it's really been the most important means of understanding and experiencing what's been happening in Ferguson. And maybe you don't care about that, or maybe you do. But that's where the authenticity of and experience is with this thing that's happening.
Dick, what do you think?
I think this is one example where Twitter was way ahead of the mainstream media. There's, look at it this way. I've covered some protests before I left to start a company when I was a journalist. I went to the student riots in Burma, and I've covered the Democratic and Republican conventions during a presidential year. There's a lot of protests going on, and a lot of it is just being there. It's talking to the right persons, getting the right photo. It's not the crafting of the story. It's just being there. And now everyone in Ferguson can be there and be on Twitter. And then you see the sort of the sad spectacle of mainstream media journalists descending and using it for things like advancing their career, networking opportunities. Twitter was way ahead on this one.
Yeah, and what you're seeing now is actually journalists who are Twitter first. They're Twitter first journalists, right?
Yeah.
They're on Twitter all day long. They're on Twitter all day long, posting everything on Twitter, and then maybe they'll wrap up some of that stuff into a story at the end of the day.
And they link to it.
Right, and then they'll link to it. But
and then their bosses are
it's not even all the stuff that went on Twitter. And the stuff that they're putting on Twitter is not just casual observations, actual things that are happening. And so you're getting a broader, more unfiltered view of events as they're occurring, and you're only getting that on Twitter.
Right.
And you're getting that from journalists, not just, citizens.
And people are learning how to make a list or use a hashtag, and the algorithms are starting to clean it up. So when you go to the hashtag for Ferguson and you say popular, you get a really good overview of people whose tweets have sort of reached past some amount of critical mass. And when you click all, you kind of get everybody's opinion. I don't know if you use it that way as well, where you're I want to see the top. Okay, now I understand what's going on in Ferguson. Okay, now let me click all, or let me refresh, and it'll give you the most recent stuff. That is just people reacting. So it's really amazing to with one flick of your thumb, you can go from the most popular to the sort of man on the street, as it were. Now, here's an interesting thing, referring to Black Twitter. I heard this. How do I say this? Got to be delicate here. There was a moment in time where, and I'm not going to say where I got this information, but Twitter had a problem. I'm using air quotes here for people not on the show, because the Black hashtags were taking over Twitter. And so you'll have hashtags from the urban community. I use the word urban because it's of city. I think it's not just Black. It could be a lot of different groups of people. But something like hashtag, some joke. Just in our community like in San Francisco, you might have ironic movie things or like bad movie sequels or something, or change a word and whatever. Those were becoming, the urban ones were becoming so popular and taking over the national dialogue that they switched the default to be your friends and your hashtags, so you don't have to see the black or urban hashtags. Now, I don't know if that story is true or not, but I heard that from around the sort of company. What do you think of that?
I have no idea. I have no idea if that's true. I haven't heard that.
But you know what I'm talking about, where there's like different sets of hashtags.
I've seen those hashtags. And, it's actually, there are all kinds of cultures and subcultures, mainstream and not mainstream, racial, ethnic, and, just general, demographic cohorts on Twitter. As a principle, I think it's always better to better understand your users as best as possible and serve them as best as possible.
Right,
That said, I always felt like I learned something new. I was exposed to something different. I felt a little more enriched, and that I understood the national dialogue better when I was exposed to those things, and not just the echo chamber of what was geographically near me or what was socially near me.
Yeah, because look here, if you pull up my screen, I have mine set to New York trends, and you can pick your location. You can get tailored, but you can't you can no longer just pick what are all the trends, right? Which is kind of like a weird thing that, that doesn't seem to be as. It used to be almost like the trend chart would expose you to the rest of the world. Right. And then it was because one group had kind of won the majority of it, that, we need to kind of, and I guess the insinuation of the person who was talking to me was saying not exactly, has to do with, giving the best experience to your customers. It's kind of this might scare people to have all these random, in some cases, more explicit language ones, et cetera. It was kind of interesting. What do you think, Declan, of the sort of default hashtag gate, if it were?
You're going to a company like Twitter is always going to be tweaking its algorithms. How much do you want, or how much are you going to weight hashtags that are common to people you follow or who follow you versus a global thing? I have look, my startup does personalized news. You don't have to have the personalized news. You can just look at top news. We have popular news and we have topic-based news. But I think that personalized news serves a purpose, and I have no problems with personalized hashtags on Twitter.
It is something.
But I want to bring this back, because you both have personalized news companies, and we're talking about.
We're using the
Twitter.
follow metaphor more than the personalized right now. But
I think that means it's not actually personalized.
Right. Well, you personalize.
Okay. Now you're going to get really wonkish on it, and talk about the the 800 words for ICE, right? I obviously come from media background. I get the difference, but we're just speaking in broad terms here. You both have app services that deal with delivering media in a way that is most relevant to a user, by whatever means that is. With Twitter as an alternative to these kinds of tools, right? You're getting authenticity of voices who are present, who are on the ground, right? It's not necessarily the journalistic view of things from the top down. Yeah. And this means the things that are bubbling up from below are in my opinion, very different from what you're going to see on your system, on stuff that even I built in the past. And this is what I think is really valuable here. Reason being, I was trying to find the best curation of stuff coming out of Ferguson, right? Not just stories, although stories certainly an important one, but tweets or Facebook posts or Instagrams or whatever, just anything, anywhere, right? Storify writ large, and I just couldn't find anything that was cutting the mustard. And this is a problem to me.
Yeah, it is, and it's a opportunity as well, I think, for startups. In looking at it at Inside, we realize we can never compete with what Twitter is doing in real time. So the best we can do is to point you to the 10 or 15 best sort of recaps, and then also tell you hey, these are some journalists you might want to follow. So we'll actually point you to the journalists or to the feeds, or to the lists. But it is it's a very interesting problem, because it's very nice to talk to you, Declan, about it, and also you, Ryan, and also MG and Matt over at Circa, because there is a really difficult challenge in you want people to be exposed to stories that are not necessarily targeted to them, that they did not opt into because they followed Ferguson. So if I didn't follow Ferguson and I don't care about news and crime or, that have to do with injustice or whatever, like I might not get exposed to it. So how do you think about that issue of, Declan, if the algorithm learns that you don't care about Bosnia, but then you should care about Bosnia.
No.
Or, what I'm saying? Like, how do you deal with that issue?
There's
the homepage issue. Yeah.
I deal with it by saying, what does the user want?
Yeah.
And if I'm convinced that the user does not want anything, any information about Bosnia, the user does not get information about Bosnia, unless, of course, you could always switch to a different topic inside the app. But otherwise, you're trying to you're trying to force feed someone some spinach, but they might not like spinach or might even be allergic to spinach. Maybe I'm taking the metaphor too far. I see there are lots and lots of venues for information. I don't see I'm not in the business of forcing people.
So you solve the personalization.
Personalization is wonderful. I will, and this hasn't been built out yet. I have a prototype only. If there's a big breaking news event, another 9/11 type thing, then you get some push notifications. But otherwise, it's tailored to you.
Yeah, see, it's interesting. It's very interesting. This is, I guess. This will be one of the things that technology will do really well, and that also could be troubling. Because if everybody goes to personalized, you could become less worldly. And one of the interesting experiences, we sort of depersonalized in a way what we were doing with Inside and said, here's top news, follow the topics you want. And you have my feed over here, which is sort of a Twitter-like experience. And then you have top news here. And people say, oh, well, I was in top news. I got exposed to things I didn't know, and I kind of like that. Anyway, it's going to be.
There's already a lot of this worldview narrowing. If you read the New York Times, you're going to have a certain view of certain liberal, progressive, cultural issues that you're going to find. You're going to find the opposite to some extent on the Drudge Report. So we already have this.
We already have that. It's a fair point. All right, listen, this has been amazing. Everybody follow Ryan on the Twitter at Ryan, and Declan. You can follow Declan and then the letter M on Twitter. Go to recent.io. Yes, not co. Recent.io and sign up early for Declan's personalized news service. I'm sure it'll be absolutely amazing. Ryan, you don't have any plugs?
Sorry, not today. Coming soon.
No plugs? No. Oh, really? Ooh, a new product launch.
Maybe.
So something new. Would it be ready for the launch scale event if you want to do it there, or that's October 21st?
I don't know.
Or the launch festival in March.
Numerous teams working on stuff. So.
All right. Well, if you guys want to launch something new, thank you to our sponsors, New Relic. You guys do a great job. Love you guys over there and gals. And thank you to Scott Ed Walker. Any other plugs, Declan? Recent.io.
Recent.io works for me.
All right. And we'll see you next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.